Hi, this is Alex from phpacademy.org. In this video tutorial we're going to be talking and looking at creating an MD5 encryptor. So MD5 is a type of one-way encryption that produces typically a 32 length character or string. So MD5 is typically used to store passwords, particularly in databases, where if someone was to gain access to a database, you're never going to want to store passwords in plain text, because then the attacker could go back to the original site. For example, it could be a website where you log in and could use this password to compromise an account. So what we're going to be looking at in this tutorial is the use of the MD5 function in PHP and how it can encrypt plain text to this 32 character string that we can then store. Now obviously it is one-way encryption, so it cannot be reversed. Therefore what you need to do is, if you were to check a string against another string, you have to encrypt it first. So it'll always produce the same result. Let's take a look at an example. I'm going to create a variable called password, and I'm going to type in a password that someone might use. Obviously an unsecure password would be pass123, but this is what we're going to be using in this example. Now we need to encrypt this password to an MD5 hash. So what I'm going to essentially do is I'm going to say password MD5 equals, and this is where the MD5 function comes in. It's simply MD5, and in brackets we're taking one parameter, which is the string we want to encrypt, which in this case is pass123. So let's go ahead and put password in there, because password variable is equal to this value, obviously. And now what we can do is come down here and echo out password MD5. Okay, so let's go ahead into our browser and refresh and check what this produces. So pass123 encrypted with MD5 encryption produces this result here. Now, no matter how many where you encrypt this, pass123 is always going to equal this value here. So what we're going to do is we're going to store this password, and we're actually going to ask the user to enter a password, and it must match this value. Now if you don't understand this, you may pick it up later in the tutorial, because obviously my explaining is not enough to demonstrate the example. So let's go ahead and store our password as this. Let's copy this and paste that into here. Okay, so you're going to have to imagine that this password is somewhere stored in a database, in a text file, which obviously isn't recommended, but anywhere this password is stored. Now we want to create a form that's going to allow the user to enter a password, and it must match pass123, which is this value here. So let's go ahead and create a form quickly. We're going to have an action of the same page. We're going to be redirecting our users back to the same page, so that is index.php in this example. My file is called index.php, and the method's going to be post. So I'm going to create a label password and an input field as well, and this is going to be text. Let's just wrap that in a paragraph there. Okay, so the name of this is going to be password. In fact, we can change the type to password to ensure it's starred out in browsers, but for now I'm going to keep it as text, just so we can see what we're typing. Okay, let's go down and now create a submit button, so we can actually submit this data back to this page. So submit, and the value of this is submit. Okay, so let's go ahead and preview our form. Let's refresh the page, and you can see that we've got a password field. We can type something in, so for example pass123, click submit, and we're going to process this on the same page. So what we need to do is we need to first of all check that this password field is set. So we can say if is set $_post password, and then we create a block here for the code we need to run if this happens to be true. So if you don't understand what this is, we're using obviously an if statement here to check this condition here, and the condition is this value here in this field, so this whole field here, has something been submitted, and does this exist? If it does, then we can run this block. Now what we're going to do is say password, in fact let's change this to password MD5. Password is equal to $_post password. Okay, so let's just echo that out so you understand what's actually going on at this point. Let's refresh the page. And you can see that my previous data that I typed in, anything that we type in here is just going to be echoed out up there. So that's essentially what this does. We're taking the value with $_post from this posted form. Remember, we're using post data, and the field name is password, which corresponds to here. So we don't want to echo this out, but what we do want to do is first of all check that it's not empty. So if not empty, password, do something. This means has the user typed something in. So if we haven't typed anything in, we're not going to get this OK message, because if not empty password, OK. If it is empty, we're not going to execute this block. So let's go ahead back to the page and click submit. Nothing's been typed, so nothing's been happening. I can consistently or constantly click this submit button. If we do type something in and click submit, it says OK. So at this point we're not actually checking the password at all, but what we want to do is compare the password that we type in to the stored encrypted password, which happens to be this value. So how do we go about doing this? Well, the first thing we need to do is modify this input, and what we need to do is actually convert this to an MD5 string upon form submission. So when the form's submitted, we're going to check if it exists. In fact this won't work, because an MD5 of nothing will still produce a result. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. Well, you can see what I mean. If I do MD5 that, and then I come back over to my page and I type nothing, oh, it still works. Oh yeah, of course it still works. That's fine, sorry. So what we're doing now is we're saying if isSetPost password, that's fine. If the form's been submitted, the password that we've typed in is now automatically encrypted to an MD5. So if we were to type in Alex, it would not match this string up here. However, if we were to type in pass123, it would actually match this value. So what we can do now is create another check and say if password is equal to password MD5, echo correct password, else echo incorrect password. Okay, so pretty straightforward. What we do is we submit the form, we convert the password that's been typed in. If it matches our previously converted MD5, which means that it's stored encrypted so no one visibly knows what this value is, then it's a correct password. So if it equals, I'm using triple equals here to check. You don't have to, you can use a double equals, but triple equals just checks that they're both string types. So correct password or incorrect password. If it doesn't match, then we get incorrect password. Let's go ahead and test this. So I'm going to type Alex as the password and click submit, and it says incorrect password. I'm now going to type pass123. Now pass123 upon submission is going to be converted to an MD5 string, or a hash rather, and it's going to be compared to the hash that we've already specified up here, and it should say we've got the correct password. So correct password. So that's basic MD5 encryption. Like I said before, commonly passwords are stored as an MD5 hash. It can be brute forced. It's not entirely secure, but it's a lot more secure than storing as plain data. So that's basic MD5 encryption and how to do it in PHP.